Hi Internet, welcome to the Greg Troyan YouTube channel, and welcome to Greg's 14 Adventures, a weekly vlog where I discuss my journey through Final Fantasy XIV as a first-time player. I beat A Realm Reborn back in 2022, and I'm finally finishing up the rest of the game. These vlogs are documenting my journey. If you like these videos and want to support their continued production, the best way to do that is to like the video, share it on a relevant social media site like Reddit, and leave a comment. Thanks, pal. Okay, so the first thing that happened during my 14 playing this week was that I found out Alphinaud and Tataru were labeled as heretics. Another example of the kind of crazy Isgardian justice system where just anybody labeled a heretic is like, oh, well, we gotta arrest you and basically execute you. Just absolutely insane justice system. But the good news is, we're allowed to do a trial by combat, which further evidence that Creative Business Unit 3, Creative Studio 3, they were watching Game of Thrones heavily at the time because it was noted in the Final Fantasy XVI development notes that Yoshi P was having the staff watch Game of Thrones as an example of this is what kind of fantasy is popular right now. And we know that Final Fantasy XVI was being developed at the same time as Heavensward, so definitely some Game of Thrones inspiration with the let's have the trial by combat here. And of course with the, oh, this person can't really fight, so they get to choose their champion, because Alphinaud, he's a decent mage, he can fight, but Tataru, not a fighter at all, but she's able to call upon her champion. And as mentioned in the previous vlogs, I've sort of started to write like a little bit of a headcanon that Leito, the Taru that I'm playing as, and Tataru kind of have like a thing. And so like Leito is like, he's pumped, he's ready to kick ass. He's, basically acknowledged by the other characters like being the strongest fighter in the world. He's Goku, baby. And so, he is a pissed off shonen anime protagonist who wants to protect his girlfriend. So he is ready to fight. He is ready to kick some ass. So after a quick pep talk session with my boy Orshafant, Leito goes to tag team with Alphinaud in a trial by combat, and it was a pretty good fight. And again, just had that big damn hero energy. Loved it. Tataru's new voice actress sounds really good. I think this is one of the biggest improvements I've seen between A Realm Reborn to Heavensward in terms of the voice cast, in terms of what's working for the character. So that entire sequence, the trial by combat thing, that was pretty awesome. And then after the trial by combat, I got a black chocobo and learned about Aether Currents, which at the time thought to myself, okay, I assume this is going to be a big part of this expansion. But then I realized through looking up later that it's a big part of all the expansions, where instead of just beating the expansion and then getting the ability to fly through the zones after you beat the expansion, you have to unlock Aether Currents throughout different zones through either doing side quests or just finding them out in the wild. And once you unlock all the Aether Currents in a zone, then your mount can fly in that region. Which, on the one hand, does seem like a cool system, but it does seem like it's a little bit more grindy and tedious, which I am not as excited about because I did like how easy it was in Realm Reborn. Just you beat the game, sweet, now you can fly and it's convenient. This does add extra work to it, and that is the system that's going to be replaced for the rest of the game. So I'll see how I feel about it as we go on with it, but it's making more sense why they made the map so annoying to navigate, to incentivize you to gather up all the Aether Currents, so that way you can just fly around the maps. But after the trial by combat and getting the Black Chocobo, Leito got a request by the Archbishop, Thordan, to go meet with him. And after exchanging some pleasantries and apologizing for their absolutely insane justice system, Thordan sends away all his advisors so he can talk to Leito one-on-one, and openly talks about meeting with the Ascians, which was a bit of a surprise. I thought that would be more of a thing he would hide and keep close to his chest, but he's like, nope, I've been working with the Ascians. I plan on betraying them. I want to ally with you. I'm using them to defeat the Dravanians because we need their help. They have powers, but I know not to trust them. And so I want you to form an alliance with me, Mr. Warrior of Light, which definitely I did not see that coming based upon that character's introduction. But it was a really, really cool sequence. I loved the framing of the scene, especially since Leito was dressed in all black, and he is the Warrior of Light, kneeling and, down underneath the dais. And then you've got Thordan, the Archbishop, clad in white, very grand, majestic, but probably the villain. And so you've got the hero in black, the villain in white. Obviously, this is just based upon what my character happened to be wearing, but that was a really great contrast, and I really liked that. So after that, before jumping back into the MSQ, I went back to Anix Shrine because I had a feeling, well, maybe that dragon that I thought was really cool, that I thought I could fight, maybe I could just talk to it because of the power of the echo. So I went back to Ainit's Shrine, but accidentally ended up exploring Mourn, which reminded me a lot of some Treasures of Ottergon areas, except the music was very, very somber. And it was definitely very cool exploring around there. But then I went and talked to Gullen Combi, and they seem like a pretty pleasant, chill kind of dragon. I guess according to the wiki, they're female, so a chill dudette. But after my misadventures, I found out from Tataru that Raubahn was to be executed. So immediately we go to Limsa Lominsa to meet with the Admiral, to share info and make a plan. I really like the Admiral's original voice actress, but the new one is also very good, and so this does feel like more of a lateral move. I was kind of worried because I thought that she was one of the better voiced characters in A Realm Reborn, and that would be a pretty big loss, but it looks like we got a pretty equal trade-off, so that's good. So after meeting with the Admiral, we decide we're going to go to Mordana to touch base with some of our Doman allies to coordinate with them to help rescue Raubahn before he gets executed. And so while there, I ended up talking to some NPCs in Mordana to see what they had to say about recent happenings, and I wanted to talk to Slathborn, but I wasn't able to get his NPC dialogue until I did his side quest. And so I did his side quest, and I got to meet Jessie, who I had already met in the Red Maid side quest, but since I quit it, canonically she didn't remember me because that didn't really happen. So I really thought that Jessie was cool when I met her in the Red Maid side quest. I thought that was a nice callback to Final Fantasy VII. And so I did a quick quest where I got some stuff to fix with the Magitech armor so you can do like cool stuff with it when you're on the map and like shoot stuff. And so after that side quest, I finally got to, talk to Slathborn as an NPC. Also got to talk some shit to a cowardly Crystal Brave. And then I met with our Doman contact in the kitchens. We found out that Raubahn was taken to Halatali, which is one of the optional dungeons that appeared in a few different storylines, kinda prominently the Hildebrand questline. And so I'm really glad I did those optional dungeons because it's making the world feel more lived in. And so when they said, oh, he's going to Halatali, I'm like, oh, I know where that is. That's the arena where the gladiators fight and win glory and all that stuff. I know that place. And it was cool that when I went to Halatali for this next mission, that I knew the layout because I had done the dungeon before. So that was pretty cool. Basically, once you get there, there's a fun solo instance where you're like going through Halatali, fighting off baddies, and then you try to rescue Raubahn, but then there's like the room gets like a poison gas filled in it, and you have to go get rid of the poison gas and like get the key to help him escape. And it was a fun solo instance. I didn't really like the solo instances very much in A Realm Reborn, but they've been pretty good in Heavensward, I'm not gonna lie. I know a lot of people complain about these solo instances in general, but honestly, they've stepped up their game so much in Heavensward where I'm really enjoying doing them. And so at the end of the solo instance, there's a big old fight with Laurentis, Yuhase, and Ilberd. And man, I was glad to fight those dudes, especially Laurentis. Like, man, I want to kick that dude's ass. Yeah, I was happy to get my vengeance on him. As far as the character that Leito has the personal animosity with, I've headcanoned that it's Laurentis, while Raubahn is the one who has the animosity and rivalry with Ilberd. I don't know who is the rival for Yuhase. Maybe Yigiri? Sure, why not? But it was definitely interesting. I think they made Ilberd a little bit too sympathetic. It was like, everything I did for El Amigo. I'm like, yo, dude, you just like betrayed your closest comrades for cash. Like, did you really do that for El Amigo? It just feels like cope. And they were trying to make him a more of a sympathetic character when he was definitely just full-on villain. So I didn't think that completely landed. At least at this point, maybe some more scenes with him. We'll see if his motivation lands. It's like, I did it all for El Amigo, but I'm not really seeing it at this point. I mean, I can definitely buy him being embittered in that Raubahn became this grand hero and sort of left his country behind for his new country of Ul'dah and could be embittered about that. But I don't see Ilberd's actions as being selfless, moving pieces on the chessboard to help free his people. It doesn't seem like that is at all what he's doing. So since I had done a few solo instances with the one in Halatali and the trial by combat, I was like, okay, maybe I'm getting better at solo instances, and I do have some new gear. Maybe I can finally beat that Red Mage level 60 quest. And so I went back and tried the Red Mage level 60 quest, and it took me a few tries to beat the solo instance, but I finally beat it, and it was nice to get that resolution of that quest that's just sort of been lingering for a long time. In another Eden, they have expansions that are kind of similar to 11, where they're not linear, like 14s. Well, they have linear expansions like 14s, where there's MSQ that you have to beat in a very certain order, but there's also non-linear expansions that are like 11s, where you can kind of do them in any order you want. And there were 2 non-linear expansions that had really hard final bosses that I just wasn't able to beat. And so I just had those lingering in the background for a long time, and then went back after I had got my characters a lot stronger. And so I was kind of feeling that with this Red Mage Quest, of like, oh man, I don't like this lingering thing being out there. Like, I did all the story stuff, and then I just got stuck on a boss, so I'm just going to have to wait till I'm more powerful to get past that part. So it was nice that I was able to do that. So after the Red Mage level 60 quest, we went back to Vesper Bay and the Wakened Sands to meet with a member of the Syndicate named Dawala, who reveals that Nanamo lives and that the poison that she was given was just like a deep sleep coma potion, and that Lord Lolorito played Teleji and tricked him into thinking that Nanamo was successfully killed, but basically he took advantage of Teleji's plot to get rid of Teleji and increase his own power in the Syndicate. Which seems pretty convoluted, but alright, I'm willing to roll with that. I'll see where this goes. It is a nice little twist. I don't know if it's as effective as the twist of her dying. I think that has more of an emotional gut punch, but I mean, I liked the character, so I'm not too upset about her being alive, and I knew the spoiler that she was alive, so I'm definitely interested to see how they integrate her back into the plot, and what role Lolorito ends up playing, and what role Raubahn ends up playing after all this, because now he's freed, but he's missing an arm, and is still considered an enemy of Lolorito, so I don't know what dynamic that is going to be, because if Lolorito tries to ally himself with Nanamo, like, is Nanamo gonna roll with that, given her relationship with Raubahn? So yeah, that's definitely interesting to see where that all ends up going. We also did get a new voice actor for Urianger, and the new voice actor is fine, but the previous voice actor was Balthier from Final Fantasy XII, and so, like, did we really need to replace him? Like, he was freaking great. Again, even for just like the legacy aspect of keeping my voice actor from another Final Fantasy game in 14, that is definitely a bummer to see him go in terms of the trade-off. Again, I'm sure the new guy is great. I'm sure I'll get used to him, but that was one of the better Realm Reborn character voice actors, and so that definitely seems like if there is any, I don't want to do like, say, oh, someone is good and someone is bad, because I respect people working in the industry, but if there was a personal step down for me, that would be one where it isn't like definitely a step down, it feels for me. And the new Raubahn is also solid, but I thought the Raubahn in Realm Reborn was also really good too, so he is a little bit of a loss, but I think the biggest loss for me is Urianger's voice actor. So going back to Ishgard, we learned that the city is preparing themselves for a siege because they expect an attack from the Dravanian hordes. So to avoid bloodshed, we decide we want to parley with the dragons, and Estinian decides to join us. Then there's a cutscene between Thordan and Zephyrin, one of the members of Thordan's Heavensward, which is apparently the elite knights of Ishgard, which, is that going to be the title drop? If just the name of those elite knights? Because that's 2 words in the text of the game, but 1 word in the title of the expansion, so I wonder if there'll be another play on that word later in the expansion. But in their private conversation, it really seems like Thordan, through his words, seems to be on our side. But there's still just like the way that the scene is framed, and just, the language of cinema, makes you think, okay, he's saying stuff that sounds good, but why does this make me uncomfortable? There's something that's missing. What's the other shoe that's going to drop? And then it seems like Zephyrin has some sort of dark transformation, which maybe that's powers from the Ascians, or maybe that's some kind of hidden power that the Heavensward has had for years that maybe the general populace doesn't know about, and maybe they utilize power from the dragons the same way Dragoons do. So definitely interested to see what that transformation ends up looking like and what role it has on the plot. Oh, and hey look, it's the mid-video call to action. This is the part of the video where I tell you to like the video, comment on your thoughts on this part of the game in the comments, so that we can have some engagement, and also so I'm not just talking into an empty void, and also asking you to support these videos by just simply sharing them with a friend. Tell a friend about these videos, and see if you can get them to comment and join the discussion. I've also got a Discord channel that is linked in the description, so if you want to talk to me outside of the comments, you can do that on the Discord channel. The only rule is just like, be a nice person, don't be a jerk. But anyway, now that Estinian was essentially in my party, I decided, you know what, I'm going to do the Lancer quests and the Dragoon quests up to level 50, because I looked on the wiki and those are the quests that Estinian is involved in. He's in the Dragoon quest up to level 50, which I'm already at, so I don't have to even gain any new levels. Because I started Lyto as a Lancer in A Realm Reborn, so I could start in Gridania, and then I would just switch him over to Red Mage, which is what I consider to be his canon job class. I did watch a story summary of the Dragoon quest on YouTube. I'm like, you know what? Let me just do it, get that extra lore, see if it lands better by doing the quests. And so I sort of flew through them pretty fast, did the Lancer quests, and they were all right. As far as job quests that I've done those, the Monk quests, and also the Pugilist quests, the Red Mage quests, and I did a little bit of the Knight quest. I think that's the job class, the one that upgrades into Paladin. And so of that bunch, the Lancer quests were probably my least favorite. I didn't find the writing to be as particularly strong, and I thought the quests themselves were a bit tedious in the tasks they made you do. So it wasn't super big in the Lancer quest line. And then the Dragoon quest line, I also wasn't as into. I expected the stuff with Estinian to hit harder in the Dragoon quest line, but it was more just like, here is a wall of text explaining my backstory. And I thought there would be more emotional pathos in the quest line is for the character of Estinian. And so it was just like, here is a wall of text that explains like why I'm embittered about these certain things. And like, you know, it was cool, you know, having a fight against him and getting the Dragoon armor and such. And I got Lyto some special armor while I did the quest line. It was still enjoyable to do, but after going through it, I didn't feel that was too essential. Granted, maybe it's because I watched like the story summary of that on YouTube, and then there wasn't anything beyond what was in that story summary. But it almost felt like, given how so much of it was like just walls and walls of text, like, and here's, you know, what happened when he was a child, it felt like the quest itself almost felt like a story summary as opposed to an actual story I was experiencing. So I'm still glad that I did them, but I definitely didn't feel like it was as essential as everyone made it out to be. And it is funny because I did do that like in between MSQ. So I had a meeting with Estinian in Ishgard, did all the Lancer Dragoon quests, fought Estinian, and then went back to that same meeting point and like, okay, so we're ready to go now. So it is just kind of funny how like we had this like intense rivalry for like a couple hours, and then it's like, okay, well, let's get back to work. But also like in terms of like what feels canon, I don't consider Lyto to be like the other one true Dragoon. That doesn't feel like Lyto. The appeal of Lyto for me, playing 11, was that he was just a dude, but just a competent adventurer, just going on adventures. And so he was never really the chosen hero of Destiny. I know in 14 you have to be the chosen hero of Destiny, but I do like the idea of Lyto just being just a dude, just a competent dude who just gets into trouble and does his best to help people. But anyway, after all that, Alphino got himself a new outfit, which was pretty cool, and I'm wondering if he's going to get a new one for each expansion, because I saw in the trailer for Dawn Trail he is wearing a completely different outfit. So I wonder if it's going to be a thing where Scions get new outfits for the different expansions. I think Yastola has a different outfit in one of the expansions, so I'm expecting new Scion outfits per expansion. So before setting off to continue the MSQ, we went and visited Tataru at the bar, and she's a waitress over at the bar, which definitely confirms my suspicion that Tataru is going to be drinking, because I worked in the restaurant industry for years, and I'm a straight edge, but I was like the only person in that industry who was straight edge. The wait staff and the kitchen staff, they were all getting drunk. And so I wanted to get Gilberlant's NPC dialogue about Tataru working at the bar, but it was a lot behind the quest that he had. So I'm like, okay, just with Slaftborn, I'm going to do this quest so I can get your NPC dialogue. And the quest was essentially delivering booze to a disgraced family and just hearing their horror story about the Ishgard justice system accusing the mother of their high house of being a heretic. She gets executed, and then the dad and son have to go live in exile. I'm just like, oh, that's horrifying. Ishgard being this like really creepy theocracy. I'm just heavily against theocratic states. I just think they're terrible, terrible ideas. And I definitely don't feel completely safe hanging out in Ishgard just because of how quickly they're just going to accuse people of heresy. You know, the only saving grace is that I know I'm essentially this world's Goku, so just like, you gonna mess with me? Try it. But anyway, so our MSQ goal at this point is we want to parlay with the dragon so we can convince them not to attack Ishgard, and we want to try to avoid bloodshed, avoid a giant battle, and just see if we can negotiate our way to peace. And so we figure the best way to do that is to talk to Iceheart, who seems somewhat sympathetic to the cause of peace. And so we went back to the hideout where Leito discovered Iceheart, and I found my first Aether Current there, which was pretty fun. But it turns out that the heretics left behind some monsters for us to take care of to help further delay us from following their trail, and unfortunately it was my favorite animal, bears, which I am not excited about having to kill bears in this game. So after fighting the bears and paying my respects, we made our way to the amphitheater where we fought Shiva and fought a bunch of heretics, but we're still no closer to finding Iceheart. So Estinian comes up with a theory that she's on this island, which is covered in ice, and underneath said island is a giant sleeping dragon. Which, giant dragons sleeping underneath islands, always very cool, but the twist of it being covered in ice? That's the first time I've seen that, so points for originality. We've had the dragon slumbering underground thing, but never under a icy island. That's new for me. So before we jump the gun on that, Estinian wants to get more info and suggests we go to the Convictory to talk with the Convictors, who are basically dragon slayers, to see what they know. And so when I got there, I saw there were a couple Aether Current side quests, and I'm like, I'm probably going to want to knock these out as soon as I see them, aren't I? And so I'm like, okay, fine, I will knock out these Aether Current side quests. And one of them was going into an optional dungeon called the Dusk Vigil, which would be the first dungeon I've done in Heavensward. And so while waiting for the queue of the Dusk Vigil, I was using my Aether Compass to find the other Aether Currents, and I got all of them in the area and did all the Aether Current side quests in the area except for one, which I'm probably going to do the next time I log in before I jump back into the MSQ, just to knock that out, because I think according to the wiki, there's just one Aether Current for the region I've missed. So definitely going to do that. But Dusk Vigil was a pretty standard dungeon by 14 standards. Wasn't one of the best ones, wasn't one of the weaker ones. It was like, yeah, okay, this is a fine dungeon. It was nice to do one. It's been a minute. But yeah, through our misadventure, we learned that if we set off a smoke signal with a purple hue to it, that is a cue to the heretics that we want to join their cause. And so we set off a smoke signal with a purple hue, which leads Iceheart to us. And she basically says, I figured it wasn't anyone actually joining the heretics and figured it was you guys, but I don't mind it. And we tell her about our goals for peace, and she kind of laughs it off, but is also like, you know what, I respect it. I appreciate you trying to do that. And she gives us a whole bunch of lore about Shiva and this other dragon, Heresvalgar, the dragon that Shiva fell in love with. And basically, dragons live way longer than the other races in Hydaelyn. And so Shiva and Heresvalgar wanted to have a way for them to be united despite Shiva's short lifespan. So Shiva's like, well, you can eat me. And so Heresvalgar eats Shiva so that their bodies can be united, which, yeah, that's an approach, I guess. And so basically, at the time of their meeting, the Elizens and humans and Lalafell and such, they were at war with the Dravanians. But after their tragic love story became revealed to the public, I guess Dravanians and the other races decided, you know what, we don't need to fight each other. Why don't we form a society together and all live in peace? And that society lived in peace for like 200 years until a bunch of greedy Elizens decided they wanted to steal Nidhogg's eye. Nidhogg is another dragon. They wanted to steal his eye because it would give them sweet powers. And that is what led to the war between the Ishgardians and the Dravanians, is the selfishness of them trying to get Nidhogg's eye and stealing it from him. And so with that massive lore dump, we decided that parlaying with Nidhogg and convincing him to stop the war probably isn't going to work. But we might be able to talk to Heresvalgar and see if Heresvalgar can help stop this upcoming Dravanian attack. And so that's what we decided to do as our next course of action is we're going to go meet with Heresvalgar with Iceheart at our side and see if we can stop the Dravanians from attacking Ishgard. And on top of all that, I finally returned to doing Palace of the Dead with Summoner Jobin. Summoner Jobin had been gone for a few weeks. They had their ceremony of eternal bonding IRL, and were spending time with their new significant other. So it had been 3 weeks since we had played together, but we were finally back in the saddle. And so what we decided to do, after heeding advice from friends in the comments, we decided we wanted to start a new save in Palace of the Dead from floor 1 to increase our Aether Pool gear. And when we were running through the first 10 floors, we were getting a lot of the blue, silver chests, but we weren't getting any upgrades to our gear. And I noticed that our Aether Pool gear was highlighted in yellow. So I looked it up, and I saw that the lower the floor you're on and the higher your Aether Pool gear is, the lower your chance of increasing that Aether Pool gear is, even if you get the chest. And so that entire run, we only got a +1 for our arm. But then we did floors 11 through 20, and we got a bunch of good games. We just rocked it, and we got through those first 20 floors super fast. And so before we went to floors 21 through 30, we decided to check to see what rewards we got with the Accursed Horde, and Summoner Jobin got a red panda minion, which was super cool. I got a unicorn and one of the pink birds from Dragoon in Final Fantasy XI, so that was pretty cool, the Colibris. So then we decided, okay, let's do floors 21 through 30, but we once again lost on the boss. We were just not doing that much damage, and so we decided that we're going to run through the floors from scratch each time we lose. So each time we lose on a floor, we're going to go all the way back to floor 1 just to increase our Aether Pool gear, because this whole game of just us trying to brute force the floors has not been working. So like, okay, we just got to grind for our gear. You know what really grinds my gears? Apparently Palace of the Dead. So next week, Summoner Jobin and I will play together, but we're probably going to take a break from Palace to do the Moonfire Fair Festival, because we like doing the seasonal events together. So we're probably going to do that next week. And then if we have time, maybe do a quick Palace run, maybe with the first 10 floors. So we'll see what happens. I did hear some rumors that they changed Palace of the Dead with this patch update to make it easier to increase your Aether Pool gear, but I didn't see that in the official patch notes. I tried finding it, couldn't quite see it. Maybe it'll come in a future patch beyond this, but would definitely like if Palace of the Dead made it less difficult to get to floor 50. That would be great. And so that is the video. I want to thank you all so much for watching. There was a lot of fun, exciting stuff in 14 this week. I did a lot with the Red Mage Quests, the Dragoon Quests, Aether Current stuff, Dusk Vigil, and a good chunk of MSQ, and Palace of the Dead with Summoner Jobin. It was a solid week of 14 playing. So I'm absolutely loving my time with the game, and I definitely want to hear what your thoughts on this section of the game are. Did you like the section when you first played it? Let me know in the comments below. And again, don't forget to like the video. It helps in the algorithm. Your buddy Greg appreciates it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to chatting with you guys in the comments. Bye, everyone.